How are you now? We're back. We're gonna do a little indoor thing because it's so cold outside. The battery just kind of dies, and don't, you know, don't get much opportunity to actually speak uninterrupted. So I wanted to talk about some things that have been kind of personally affecting me, and uh, having known a lot of very active-minded people in my life. People that have a hard time like taking it down a notch, you could say, or just keeping their cool. Um, I think it's an important subject to touch on, and I don't like to put uh, disorders in boxes. Like I'm not. I try my best to avoid compartmental thinking, but I guess the best couple words I can describe it, as long as we can remain outside of the boundaries of language, just use it as like a signpost, But it's manic psychosis, and it's this feeling of like extreme excitement, like over ideas, over plans, like you know, especially creative people I see, like they get into the flow of creativity, and then it's just absolute like focus, 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 focus in. And they may I think delusions are a big part of this the psychotic aspect, I guess. And I think that where these start to arrive especially is just lack of sleep. And honestly, a lot of people who are going through spiritual struggles without context in their worldview may describe what they're experiencing as psychosis or manic psychosis. But I don't necessarily think that's always the case. And answering honestly to any psychiatrist, if you are experiencing like really intense spiritual things out here in the West, and it'll land you in a padded room, and you'll pretty much be treated like a menace to society, a danger to yourself. Uh, I think it's important to understand that we do live in a system which pathologizes spirituality, authentic spirituality. At least, you know, it would appear to pathologize it. And we get all of these things that, kind of fill the void. But for the most part, like the churches have fallen, off of a spiritual plane for the most part. Not all of them, there are many, and many individuals who are part of the church who still uphold great values. But the Christian Catholic Church, for the most part, has failed to replicate any type of authentic spiritual experience. And we see all of these alternatives being introduced, especially into the mainstream. Like there's things like drugs, and they'll claim, oh, it's holy sacrament from here and here and used for a couple of thousand years. Yeah, sure, okay, that's a lot to run with, especially for somebody who likes to weigh their case logically, intellectually, and trusts sources. We're like, okay, like let's take some mushrooms, because before this whole Christianity thing, whatever it was when it was introduced, whether authentic or I tend to assume it was very authentic when it started. Like people were very devout, they're zealots, but I tend to think that there was something that was replaced, and perhaps that that religion that was practiced by whichever people was more authentic. Like before they'd converted to something that was not their own faith, like not their own natural construction, but something which had been, I don't want to say imposed, but a lot of times there were forced conversions. And I don't think it's also cut and dry like black and white. I don't think that I'm not saying that there weren't mixes of pre-Christian civilizations and Christian civilizations, because you can see that obviously in Central America, South America, even in Europe. Like you see pagan crossover with Christianity in a lot of things, a lot of the holy sites. But with a lack of authentic spirituality in Western civilization, we often, well, first of all, pathologize ourselves. And if we don't pathologize ourselves and we begin to seek structure, we find a lot of, I guess, gatekeepers, in our way, between here and authenticity. And I think that just speaks to the fact that the system does understand that this spirituality exists, on whatever level. And spirituality is such a vague word, but I mean it like a true metaphysics, like a realm within, which touches other realms, other people's realms, like this interconnected, like energy plane, of existence. It somehow ties in with dreams and imagination and seeing ghosts and all of these things. Like, I personally believe that this is a real thing, and a lot of other people have experienced it firsthand, just like I have. I tend to say, like, my faith is, it's not even faith, because having experienced those higher things, how can you just say, oh, I have faith that it exists? Like, you must know, there is a sense of inner knowing that this thing exists. Oh my God. But yeah, with a lack, with a lack of that authentic spirituality, people will try to find, their own, if they don't pathologize themselves and end up in a padded room. And these guys set up by the system they're just right there to catch you. Like, a lot of people get sucked into certain vortexes, or animal farms. This is I think one of the metaphors, that you could take out of Animal Farm is, as soon as you escape the first, set of walls, there's a whole other set of walls around you. So you think it's like, oh, I'm breaking free of the atheistic or the nihilistic, Western mainstream civilization sort of way of thinking. I've escaped. Yes, I'm out. And then you're like, oh, like what? I'm a free person. I'm going to search for whatever I want. And a lot of people don't realize that, within the context of the search, you're in another system of control, which is, this is just one example. You go searching for something on the internet, but you're within another system of control. With, like, no matter what website you're using, no matter what search engine you're using, like, you're within another net. So, maybe you go outside the boundaries of being an atheist, and so you type in Google and you're like, okay, like, spirituality, like, let's find somebody here, and it's gonna spit somebody out at you who is obviously, part of the system, and they want to take you in this obvious direction. A lot of the time, like, what you'll see is guru type people like Alan Watts or Ram Dass or Timothy Leary. Like, these types of guys often draw people in, and that's not to say that they don't play an essential role in developing the consciousness, but I think that a lot of people, in absence of authentic spirituality, tend to make idols, out of people that can bring them into a more authentic existence. And like, this is just what happens. People end up thinking that Alan Watts, it knows it all. Like, this is the guy, and whatever he says is canon. So you got to go read Sun Tzu. You got to go read the Tao. Like, you gotta go read it all. Like, and then live it. Sit on your ass and do all the meditations. And it's not to take away from any of those practices either, but I think that people have a drive to act religiously, to be religious, and whether or not they realize it, unconsciously, that drive will find something, to worship or to put on a pedestal, to have as the ideal. And the ideal not necessarily being something to strive to, but something to answer to, like, I don't want to say something that makes a set of rules, but it's just food for thought. I think, I've gone beyond the scope of what I was going to originally talk about, but if you are experiencing, I guess I'll have to go to like 15. If you are experiencing somewhat of a hallucination or something like that in everyday life, it's only the context in which you live which will determine how you perceive that hallucination. Whether or not, like, it'll affect it while it's happening, because I do believe that like if you are closed off to the fact that that could happen, you are generally, less inclined to believe or less inclined to experience it even. This is this whole phenomenon, like you study or you'll see around you what you study. If you study a lot of math, you'll begin to see like angles and numbers and things like that. If you're an artist, like you may notice all different colors, but the brain cannot process everything at once because there's just so many different things that you could focus on. And so I think that the Jesus Christ, I've really spun myself in. Okay, so I think the context, in which you live, like your worldview, somewhat determines how you experience psychic reality. And I'm just saying there's not much context in the West, not exoterically, at least. Like maybe there are inner orders or something, but I'm quite sure that those things require like blood oaths and a bunch of weird stuff. I don't think that anything should be gatekept, and like I don't think that secrets should be withheld from human beings who have divine light in them. It's just a matter of when to share that with people, like when they are waking up and they are ready to hear things. Not necessarily when they're going about their day-to-day life just feeling like I don't have any time for anything and just rush. Many people will go through their lives like that, and perhaps like those are the people that aren't meant to actually consider these types of realities. But I think that taking those types of experiences seriously and thinking of them like dreams, most people will experience dreams, and I don't think that in any way that will ever land you in some sort of a psych ward or anything like that. I think most people who aren't sleeping enough will sometimes have a little bit of crossover. Like if you're falling asleep and you start to dream like right away, but you're half asleep, and sometimes your dream world will cross over with a phenomenon you're experiencing in your day. Like if you were to hear like a coffee machine like going off like grinding beans or something like that, you might in your dream see some sort of piece of machinery like coming closer to you, like some sort of a chainsaw. There could be some overlap there. And so it's interesting how the waking world and the dream world overlap, and it's interesting how dreams speak to unconscious ideas, just unconscious thoughts, and how if you aren't sleeping enough, those unconscious thoughts and even moods and ways, because these things can take you over. Like they aren't simply thoughts, just like emotions aren't simply something which you feel. It's like an emotion becomes you, like a thought becomes you. And so these things like which people experience, like they do very much touch the hearts and minds of the people which they affect, and even for years and years and years after, like a simple one-time psychic experience can turn somebody's mind just totally open to the fact that it could happen at any time. And just through that opening, it will generally happen more and more and more as this person accepts their daily reality. But I think it's just a matter of like having focused on something which you can even comprehend, because there's no possible way to focus on something which you can't even comprehend. I think thinking like that is it's really important to orient ourselves with the highest possible conception, and then to aim up. And like if we are orienting ourselves with the highest possible conception, and if we're aiming up, like that is something which we can't even conceive, but that is the process of growth. It's like you are going to become someone different and hopefully better. And I think that this expanding of consciousness, this expanding of mind and awareness, it's all part of it. I really spun a web today, but food for thought. That'll be it.